Okay, so do you have tips? Do you have advice? Happy to hear you out.
Well, it depends on what are you trying to do. What's the goal?
So the main goal is, at this point, is to hold this balance between what I actually want to talk about, which is like, what is your prep and how do you navigate a conversation where you're able to stay on top of other people and really put some pressure on them and like come out on top in these debates, and then like at the same time trying to balance like the expectation on me to like point out things that she's done that are wrong, or things that people have misgivings about, or do this in a responsible way. But the difficult thing is I'm not a debater. I don't really want to argue with her about shit. And I'm not sure how exactly I bring that stuff up while like it seems like a balance where like these are two very different goals to go for.
Yeah, so the most important thing, like step one, is you have to figure out like what is your goal with the conversation.
Yes, so those are the two. Basically, talk to her about how she's successful in debates and if there are tips that we can give to other people regardless of their ideology. And then at the same time, like making a remark or reference to the things that she's done wrong enough to like appease the Twitter people who would be upset with my platforming her at all.
Well, so the problem is like those two things, those are two very separate conversations. Like you can have them together, but like on one hand, it's like, hey, so like how do you prepare for debates? Like, is there some kind of special prep you do? Is there some kind of like, how do you research or whatever? And also, do you disavow when you used to be a Nazi 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Like these are like two totally different types of conversations. I don't really know.
Further, I don't think she disavows that shit. That's the other problem. Like I've been through like every video where she tackles criticism, she just kind of just deflects.
So the problem, so I can speak from a personal level because I can empathize with her position. The problem isn't that she won't disavow anything that she's used to believe in, or that she used to believe in, or in private conversations to me, she says that she's moderated a bit. But the problem is people usually want her to disavow things that she feels like she never stood up for or believed in or did. That's the problem. So like in my understanding of all the things that Lauren talked about, I would say that I felt like she was pretty squarely like alt-right. I feel like pretty comfortable about that. But a lot of the people that she associated with were farther right than that, like extreme far right, or maybe even Nazis, when I think of people like Stefan Molyneux. But the problem is that when people go after her and they're like, you need to disavow this, they start hitting her with things that she feels like she never believed in, so she doesn't really want to disavow that. I guess for something similar, it would be like if you came to me and you were like, do you disavow what you said about Rittenhouse? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And you were like, do you disavow you saying that you wanted to kill all BLM protesters? I'm going to say, no, fuck you. I never said that. I'm not disavowing that. Fuck you. But if you said, do you disavow that maybe the way you said it was like a little bit heated and somebody could reasonably walk away from that clip at least thinking that you wanted like protesters to be killed? Then I might be like, yeah, maybe that was like, that clip was definitely too heated. I should have like been a little bit more careful with my language there. But you see, there's like, you're going to elicit two completely different responses based on how I perceive what you're calling me out for. Does that make sense?
Right. And I guess like my encouragement, and it's honestly the same criticism that I have for you a lot of the time, is to be charitable when you're making an apology or when you're addressing criticism, and try to give as many concessions as you can fit in to charitable interpretations of like the criticisms that are being levied at you. And she really doesn't do that. She creates an entire narrative for why everybody's wrong. Everybody else is doing the thing that she's being called out for being wrong. And here's why. They're motivated reasoning. They're political opponents. Like these are the notes that I have from her most recent like addressing criticism video, and that's like way off the mark for wrong.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I guess
she prepared that in advance too. She got to pick what she thought the criticisms were.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really depends on what your goal is. For me personally, I've said this a million times. I don't care about apologies. It's not something I'm ever interested in. I just don't. But I think that if you were trying to have like an effective conversation, I think that it's probably better to let her lead, but open it with a question of like, do you feel like you have political positions that are the same now as you did in the past? And if not, what positions have changed a little bit? Because then you give her the ability to say, well, I believed X, Y, and Z about trans people, Jews, whatever, in the past, but I don't really believe that anymore. I think I was too extreme. Or if you want an even more pointed question, maybe you can say, why do you think people believed that you had these types of beliefs in the past, like sure, there's going to be some sensational reporting, but do you ever regret like hanging around people that you used to, or do you think that like maybe the company that you kept might have like reasonably led some people to think that like you were more extreme than maybe even you felt? Like if you do questions like that, then I think you can kind of walk through a conversation where the other person has simultaneously the ability to bring up things that they genuinely don't feel anymore, but then also kind of like get to save their own like sense of self by being like, I was never a Nazi, I didn't believe this thing or that thing. I think that people are too extreme there. If you're trying to like go that route, that's probably what I would say you should do, but yeah, I don't know.
Oh, wonderful, because those are already like the two things I'm opening with.
Okay,
and
yeah.
then beyond that, looking at other people, like to get like a scale for her. Like, what are some dangerous ideologies or positions that you'd criticize a public figure for supporting and advocating, to like be able to know where she draws those lines as well? Because I never really hear her talk about that outside of like throwing it at lefty people. And so there's going to be a good bit in here about like, okay, if we both sides this shit, like where are you drawing the lines on the right side for people? Where are you drawing the lines on the left side for people? How do you word that criticism? And let me see if I could like package that in your kind of wrapping and show you how like the stuff that you're doing is pretty detestable in this way and this way that you're describing.
Yeah, I guess basically like, so you're trying to say like, so your goal here is to be able to criticize some of her recent content, basically?
Yeah, and probably more so in a future conversation, because I would want to prep that stuff. But basically getting some...
So Lauren has like dipped her toes. No, Lauren has been full on like living like the political world for a long time. Okay, so this is something that you need to understand. Nobody understands this, okay? I am one of the only people, I'll jerk myself up, I'm one of the only people online that really, I super duper care about all the things that I talk about. And I do a lot of reading, even more than we talk about on stream, about a lot of these topics and a lot of the periphery things related to these topics, because I really do care. Most people do not, okay? Lauren Southern absolutely did. So if you've read like a Twitter, no, she cared about them and she read and researched. Now, whether it was right or wrong, yes.
No, you're completely like, it really depends on what video you're talking about, because she's admitted that she did not do that on at least a couple of videos.
Here's what I'm saying is that she might have said that like the research that she did was bad or wrong, but what I'm telling you is that if you try to attack her because of something that you read in a Twitter headline, you are going to get absolutely fucking destroyed. It's not going to be like, it's not going to be like a conversation with Lance or Mike from PA or one of these dipshits that have like a Twitter thread. Like if you're going to attack her over like, hey, you said this and that's wrong, she's going to be ready with like, well, I heard from this guy, this source, this source. She's going to have that ready. So if you have a criticism of her, it needs to be really, really well founded, or else you're going to flounder and she's going to come out looking really strong. And if your goal is to attack a position, obviously that's going to be contrary to what you want. That's the only thing I say when you should be careful. She's not like the typical like lefty dipshit on Twitch that has no fucking idea what they're actually talking about.
Destiny to get 83% off Surfshark.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna try to avoid any like beyond 2 levels of like arguing back and forth with her. But Vosh is similar in that regard. Like, all right, I'm gonna tell you like what I think the problem is, or like what I think rhetorically you could do to improve it. If you want to fucking argue, you can go argue with somebody else, because I don't do that ever. And that's another problem is like people want me to ask these questions or bring up these topics, but if I'm not going to like debate it and go like down the logic tree with her, like I think people are going to be really disappointed. Yeah. I don't think there's any other way like to do that. Like, what do you want me to do? Argue with her without prep and
but
like
that's
do
what,
that?
That's
like,
what
that's
people
not
want.
At all
like,
what the point of this.
Right now, everybody in this entire Twitch sphere is just waiting for like a public execution of her. That's all anybody wants to see. They're waiting for somebody to be like, you said this in 2016 and it's wrong and bad and blah, blah, blah. That's all people want right now. So any conversation you have that isn't you like obsessively talking about like the Christchurch shooter or anything video that she's done 5 years ago, whatever, people are going to be pissed off. That's just the reality of the situation. But it sounds like the conversation you're trying to have with her is not going to be focused on that. So people are going to be pissed off. But I mean, even my fan base is like constantly pissed off, and the hatred for this person is very, very high too. I've got like people listening to league games we're playing where they're like, if you up the volume right here, you can hear her quietly walk back a statement while we're like in the middle, and it's like, oh my god, you guys are delusional. Yeah, so just I would say that one of the most important things you learn in customer service is managing customer expectations, because that's going to determine whether or not they're upset or not. It's not really how good or bad the product is, it's what they expect. So as long as you're super clear in the beginning, like, hey, I'm just talking to her about like her rhetoric and stuff like this, and that's it. And my goal isn't to like dig in and like shit from like 5 years ago. I mean, like people won't get as mad, but that is really all people are waiting for. That's what everybody wants.
So it's sounding like, because my plan was to have maybe 20 to 30% be focused on these topics just to like make sure that they were set on air. But it sounds like I should just remove that and just go full force into what I want to talk about. And then if we get around to those other things, and we could, is that preferable, or should I stick with the current plan of like at least getting some footholds around like what she thinks about like canceling or changing her mind or positions or the controversy?
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, it super depends on what your goal is, because again, I think that those are two super different conversations. Number one being like, how do you prepare for debates? And number two, like, do you disavow or do you think differently? Because one of these is like, how do you prepare for a debate? It's kind of like you have like a math tutor and he comes in and you're like, well, how would you study for like a Calc 3 test? And also, do you regret cheating on your girlfriend? Like, these are like two like totally, it's like totally different conversations. Not to say that you couldn't have both. I'm just saying that it's going to be like way different like vibes for each half of that conversation, I guess. Yeah.
Maybe I could shoot past you how I had planned to connect these, and you could tell me if this might make sense in practice.
Yeah, go for it.
Like, from my perspective, if I can just get some general answers from her in the very beginning as like litmus tests that we can apply to her other statements later, then what I can do is I think for her in particular, handling criticism is something that's going to be really important, and she fucks it up like a lot. It's quite a big problem, like rhetorically for her. So I actually do think it's significant, if she wants to do good in debates, to learn how to handle criticism better, learn how to appease people that are looking for that out of her better, and reconcile like her belief that you need to take your head out of the fishbowl and that you need to stop doing motivated reasoning or blaming everything on ideology, with like constantly calling all of your detractors motivated by like politics and engaging in motivated reasoning, and not really criticizing you, but criticizing, just because they believe in something different politically.
I understand that, but it's going to be hard because a lot of her detractors legitimately don't give a fuck. Like, their criticisms are oftentimes unfounded, and they really don't care like if she's changed positions or not. They just want to destroy her. Like, that's literally the whole goal. So like and I think we've kind of disagreed, or maybe we agree more on this on the past, but like, I think that it takes a very, very, very powerful person to be able to stand in a wave of just vitriolic hate from people that don't like you and couldn't give a fuck less if you killed yourself tomorrow, and try to extract meaningful criticisms out of those people. That's a really hard thing to do. And in terms of like the people that get like, and I'll bet my life on it, I know right now, if you were to poll like all of the people in the leftosphere, and you were to say like, hey, do you legitimately think it'd be good if Lauren came back with like more moderated beliefs, but she was still like a conservative, or do you think she should disappear forever? 95% of them would say she should disappear forever. She should never come back ever. So if that's like the crowd of people that are criticizing her, and if you look at like some of the criticism she started with, so look at like how Lance treated their last debate, that was unbelievable. It's not really surprising to me that she doesn't engage with it and like, oh well, I'm sure these are good faith criticisms of my beliefs, but she's probably more thinking like, these guys are just assholes that are super motivated, and I'm going to nitpick the fuck out of every criticism they give, and I'm not going to take much of it very seriously. It wouldn't surprise me. Like, I would expect her to engage with it that way, even if it's not optimal.
Sure. Then it would be better to give her a more optimal strategy, right? That is like 2 steps removed from that current one, so she could easily move to it.
But yeah, it just depends on like, she has to have you. Fine, it sounds really creepy talking about like her particularly. So what I like to serve as, is I want to be like a hook for somebody to feel comfortable like exploring ideas with me. So something that she said, hopefully I'm not leaking or whatever, but so something that she said to me privately, she said that I'm one of the few people that she feels comfortable kind of like flirting with more leftist ideas, because in any other area where you do that, either one, people don't believe you, or two, they're like, it's not enough for you to say like, well, maybe this is okay. People want you to go like 180 over to the other direction instantly. So I think that like something that you can do like personally, or like something that I try to do is like, I want to be like a soft landing pad, so that like if you are an alt-righter or a Nazi or whatever, that at least you can be like, okay, maybe like, so maybe there is a white genocide, but at the very least, like maybe Jews aren't doing it intentionally, okay? And I want to be somebody to be like, okay, good job. I'm glad that you can, at least I got you on that. And like, I'm not like ultra judgmental about it. I'm not here to hammer you over the head and call you a dumb fuck about it, but like, at least we can have a conversation and we can kind of like find some common ground. That's generally like my goal. And I think you need people like me. You need those stepping stones or those hooks where it's like, I feel like I can talk to this person without being ultra fucking judged about where I'm coming from. Because if you have that, and that's what it looks like, no one is ever going to come back to any other side. They're all just going to stay with the most extremist friends they have. Because why the fuck would they go talk to anybody that disagrees with them if they're just going to get called like a Nazi, fascist, horrible person the whole time, you know?
Nathan Prime.
So, oh man, this
Yeah,
is where you can help me. I believe that you're right, but the optically aware side of me knows that that is always a losing battle to do in public. Like I had
worried that she'll agree on too much and it'll look bad. So she gave like the same type of thing that you said, where she's worried about like how like certain conversations will go, because optically everybody's just going to see it as like, oh, she agreed on that, she's a Nazi still, blah 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 blah. And like, yeah, that is a problem. But I mean, the reality of the situation is just that like most people in like the public, most like fan bases or crowds or whatever, they don't really want to see like that healthy type of like conversation or rehabilitation or whatever. I don't like to use the word rehabilitation also, it's really condescending, but they don't like to see that healthy type of conversation. They just want to see like a slaughter fest. Like that's all they want to see, is like you eviscerate somebody politically. Like that's all they care about.
Okay. But I don't know if you're the best guy to go for this question, but like how optically can I like make sure that she knows that door is open and to establish that kind of relationship? Like, oh man, this is like a third goal that just doesn't mesh with this other one, right? Like, okay, the goal thing is important. It's sounding like I should abandon the goal of appeasing the people who are going to be like really upset about like not mentioning the criticisms about her, and just like really, really try to focus on building a relationship so that like I can do what I know is going to be better for everybody in like forming a relationship with her where maybe I could change her mind on stuff in private, because that's probably a better way.
Those things are contradictory, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't think you can do that, because what the public wants is not any type of like healthy conversation. They just want a bloodbath. So like, yeah, those two things are always going to be contradictory, I think. There's no way around it, but.
Okay. Fuck. I spent so many hours on prep for just that one little bit of the conversation. It's sounding like it's probably not best to do it.
Or you could do it, and the experience that you get when you look at the public backlash you'll get, maybe that'll be a good. Because you can see.
Well, that's the other thing. I don't want to get black-pilled about this shit and get mad and then go, you know what? Fuck all of you. You're all fucking stupid. You're all fucking awful. You expect too fucking much. You don't have realistic. Like, I don't want to get like that. I feel like I'm gonna get like that if I lean into this and people act like that.
That another thing that I try to like. This is just like a vocabulary. I try not to use words like converting somebody or like bringing somebody over, because I feel like when you say that, I feel like the implication is that you're starting in the correct position and you are like finally showing them the light. I think that having that holier than thou attitude is a big turnoff to a lot of people as well. Like, I just like to phrase it as like, I think that we probably agree on more than the other person realizes, and I just want them to realize that, I guess. That's all I'm saying, yeah. But yeah, yeah, the public perception is never going to be what is best to kind of like convert people. That's just not, because most people, again, just they are very tribalistic, and that's all they care about, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's right. The rhetoric there is bad, and I think an even better way to word it that's wrapped up in the direction that Southern seems to want to go based on her video is like helping her to better understand both sides of things, because that's what she's talked about wanting to do in her documentaries, bringing out like people who are strong on both sides of an issue and evaluating those positions. And I think that as somebody who has been so radically entrenched in one side of things for so long and engaging this motivated reasoning that she wants to get away from, it's going to be really difficult for her to do that, to look at things that way. So maybe like helping her to kind of like translate between one side and the other is a better way of looking at it. Like, I can give you like a way of wording this that it will help you understand it better as somebody starting from the other side of things.
Yeah. I think a really, really good question to ask somebody in that is like, what kind of steps do you take to make sure that you're like adequately representing the other side? Like, how do you feel like you're truly connecting with that? Because when people will start talking, like if somebody's like, oh, I don't know, and it's like, okay, I don't think you've thought about this at all. But I think for a lot of people, if they have genuinely been introspective in that, they'll have pretty interesting answers that you can dive into. Because like you said, like she is like very obviously has been in very, very, very far right communities. So, you know, her idea of what is a left representation might be really skewed. So it might be good to have that conversation.
And what was the question or the topic again? Sorry, I was taking another note.
Like asking somebody, like, what do you do to make sure that you have a fair representation of the other side?
Okay. Any tips for talking to Southern personally from your constant engagement with her? I
treat everybody like a human being. That's all I do. I'm really lucky in that my background, because I grew up like Catholic and religious, like I have like a really wide variety of people that I've spoken to. So I think I can talk to like most people like decently. But like I think that the biggest strengths that I have of like an individual person for people talking to me is like I'm very, very, very not judgmental. So hopefully most people that talk to me feel like they can be pretty open without me being like, wow, that's horrible or whatever. Yeah, I mean like this gets into just like how do you talk to people personally or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any advice on handling the ensuing Twitter mob of people that are not going to be happy regardless of what I do?
No, everybody wants a public execution. That's if you don't do that, people are going to be mad. So that's there's no way out of that.
I forget that you're like, I just don't care about anybody or anything.
All I would say is that, like, again, like this is like the golden customer service rule is managing expectations, right? Like, why is it that people go to really good steakhouses and sometimes they're upset when the steak isn't that good, but they can go to like a Village Inn and get a steak and eggs and they're super happy with that steak? It's because when you go to Village Inn, you're not expecting, like a 5-star whatever fucking steak. So your expectations are low.
Stop stuffing your fat fucking mouth.
You're generally okay. So all you can do is do that. Like if you're very clear and you're like, my goal isn't to have like a giant fucking debate over 2016, migrant flares. I just want to talk about rhetoric. Like that's the best thing you can do to manage people's expectations.
All right, fair enough. I'm gonna go set things up with her. I appreciate the talk. Have a good rest of your stream.
Yeah, good
Hope
luck,
I don't fuck this up.
Have fun. Wow, it's so weird because I'm talking to her and then I get all these people messaging me who are like, I'm gonna debate her, I need help. So I've got like Booksmarts messages me and then Fanatic is messaging me. It feels so weird.
How are you? How did it go?
Well, how do you think it went? We listened to the whole thing.
I think it was rough at first, and I don't think that I handled the immigration part well. I got caught in a debate when I really didn't mean to, and I felt like I got in so deep that there was no optically sound way of pulling out that I could see at the moment, and I think that costed me. But
I'm
after
really
that,
curious,
I think
why do you think that happened?
Ooh, okay. So I haven't had a chance to review the footage, but my guess would be that it was exactly what you said, that she cannot accept a claim that is more than what she did, and that upset her. And then I kept going without clarifying that very well. And I think that kind of added tension to the conversation, and then there was a breaking point, and I'm not sure where the exact breaking point was.
Yeah, a little bit. I think, so I'm going to be really razor focused. I think there was actually one thing that can save you from that ever happening in the future. Now, maybe this isn't what you meant, so I might be wrong here, but I think the issue is that for most of this conversation, when you talk, you usually say, these are other people's criticisms of you. But when you got into that immigration part, I think the thing that you started saying that was setting off like the lizard brain, this would happen to me as well. I would fall for the same thing, or not fall for it. It's not like a trick. But the way that you gave voice to some of the criticisms, you made it sound like it was your criticism. So rather than like, people say this, is it reasonable that people feel this way? Maybe you said things that make people feel that way. You started to say like, you said some really yikesy stuff. You've made some comments. And I think at that point she felt like, well, hold on. He's actually attacking me now. Well, hold on. Now we're going to argue about this. Because I think that's how I would hear it. If you were to say like, Destiny, don't you think that like some people could take your BLM takes like pretty wrong, blah, blah, blah. I could engage in that conversation. But if you were to start saying, Destiny, you said you wanted to kill protesters, I'd be like, okay, hold on, wait, pull out the quote books, show me, right? Because now it feels like you're making the accusation, not discussing the accusations. That's how I felt listening to it.
Okay. That's actually really, really good advice. And I'll have to keep that in mind moving forward, like, because that little change could mean like a world of difference there.
Because you go from like having a meta discussion about the conversation to now it feels like, now I'm not saying you're doing this, but I'm saying to the other person, it feels like you've inserted yourself into it, and now you're having the debate. Like, oh, I know you do that. That's my guess is how it sounds. Yeah.
What are some other like really like clearly fuck up places?
I don't think any of this was clearly a fuck up. I thought most of it was fine. Even that part, like, I think that you could fault maybe her on for getting defensive too. I don't think there's any part of this was fucked up. I will say one thing that I don't know if you felt this way, or maybe I just have, like, maybe it's just I hear everything through my perspective. Does it feel like a lot of the complaints that she echoes are kind of similar to mine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that's really, really hard to do that I'll kind of echo from her point of view. And I think I even said this to you before you talked. It is really hard to take out criticism when 90% of the people are making these horrible bad faith attacks against you, and maybe 10% are making like these good faith criticisms. It's really, really hard to find like the value in like, well, what, you know, where is the good criticism here that I can respond to? I think that's an issue that she was having as well.
Yeah, and I know that you mentioned that to me like before and in conversations before as well. Like, oh, you're like expecting me to look at these abusive ass people who are saying like literal like mistruths and accept them. And I didn't have, and I still I need to look back and figure out where this was. Naturally, it came up that like we were talking about some people that were saying awful shit and how we were able to get something useful out of that. Like they're still pointing at something, and it wasn't clear to us just looking at it, but like taking in more moderate perspectives brought into focus like, oh, okay, the moderates are saying this, and now I see why the crazy people were triggered. And I think that could be helpful. But she's also dealing, like you, with a bunch of IRL people that are really fucking up her life. And I think that like, oh man, it's so tough for me to take that into account and to deal with that. But that's definitely something I need to get better at, being the guy that talks about like criticism and getting something out of the crazy people.
Yeah, because it can feel really difficult to do that. That's like sometimes almost inhuman to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a much better argument is to like stop focusing on the crazy people and start focusing on the moderates who you could reasonably reach. And I think that was something that, from my perspective, it looked like it was helpful for her to hear.
Yeah, maybe it's just really hard, and maybe we actually factually disagree on this. It feels like the loudest voices and the most popular voices are the most insane. Like when I think of like people that make criticisms of me, it's not like there's all these really good criticisms, but there's just one or two extremely far left people. Like the mainstream opinions are like, oh, Destiny hates BLM. Oh, Destiny, like now a lot of people on this platform are saying I'm like a future rapist. And that seems to be like some pretty mainstream criticism. It's not just the crazy. So that makes it even harder to try to like extract like meaningful criticism out of the crowds, I guess. Or it feels that way at least.
Yeah. And something I conceded to her as well is it's really easy to focus on those people and let that like tinge your characterization of all of the criticism of you. And I think it's really easy to just give up and be doomer because you're like, well, fuck it. Everybody that hates me is fucking crazy. You should see what my DMs are. You should see the people talking to me. And it's like, oh no, but like, if you really want to get to that side or like be able to communicate with them, like you have to focus on the moderates, not those crazy people. And like every time you find your awareness shifting to like the crazy people and characterizing everything by the crazy people, you lose out on like really helpful information. I actually think maybe dropping the idea that crazy people have something useful to give you altogether until I get buy-in on like shifting your focus there is probably better in the future.
Yeah, potentially. I feel like that's, even though it feels like I'm really bad at taking criticism, I think that is something that I try a lot in the past, is the idea that like, even if they are crazy, if like 100 people, yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Even if there are like a fuck ton of crazy people, if all of them are giving the same type of criticism, it has to map onto something. That there's something there, and it's good for you to understand that, even if the criticism isn't valid, you know?
For sure. Wow, I'm surprised that like there weren't other bad parts. Like in the moment I felt like it was going well, but it sounds like the immigration thing was the biggest problem. Some other people in chat mentioned like a condescending tone that's coming through with like repeating her name a lot, or let's see here, like not being clear about that this is like coaching or whatever, or like not being clear about the way that these conversations work. I still have a really hard time with condensing down what I'm trying to do into a really easy to understand TLDR. Like, could you think of any way that I can do that? Some kind of like tagline or something I can say that makes clear what my intentions are? Because that always feels like a hurdle to get over. Like, I don't want to debate you. I want to like help you communicate better or understand people better.
I mean, what you're doing is very weird. Like nobody else does this, so that's just going to be something you have to constantly overcome, I think, right?
How would you characterize it?
That's what you do. You do like debate coaching, or not even really, like just more like kind of like rhetoric guiding, optics guiding. But like every time you say that, nobody's really going to believe you, kind of, right?
No.
You're gonna, yeah, people are always going to be like thinking that it's like a debate or something. That's how they're going to approach it, right?
Yeah. Okay. Did your chat say anything bad? Because I know your opinions are different from theirs. Anything that triggered them?
I wasn't watching chat as much. I was just listening and then watching a game I'm playing. I wasn't really staring at chat.
Okay.
I think reading through all of chat and then listening to you guys at the same time would have been really hard.
Okay. Then I'll probably check it out after and see what kind of nonsense they were saying. That will be helpful as well.
There'll probably be a post to my subreddit about it. So.
Oof. I hope it's positive.
They're super mad about everything relating to her. So.
Are they really? Do they not like that you're talking to her a bunch then?
No, holy shit, dude. There's like threads every single time I talk to her. There's like a thread like every other day where they're like, just so you guys know, this woman is like a subhuman piece of shit, disgusting fucking nuts. Like literally like daily or bi-daily. It's like insane.
Damn. Okay. Fuck. I know that Twitter's not going to be happy, right? Like, could you predict what Twitter might be mad about before I even look at it?
It'll be the same thing that you like didn't challenge her enough, or you're helping her with her rebranding tour. That's something that a lot of people say a lot.
Do you feel like it's fair to characterize what she's doing as a rebranding tour? Like, what is your take on that?
When you say rebranding tour, there's a grifting, like a disingenuous kind of like implication there. So like if she is legitimately like presenting her opinions and doing all of that, it's kind of weird that when you say rebranding, the implication is that it's not genuine, right?
And like, if it is, she's not doing a very good job. Like, she doesn't seem like she's super great at like convincing the other side that she had changed. She said that she didn't change in her thing.
You're actually looking at like what people are saying or whatever. That nobody cares. Nobody listens to anything she says. Nobody engages in her content. It's just she's a Nazi, and now right now the current idea is that like she's just trying to make nice with everybody so that she can come in and like secretly make everybody else a Nazi again or some shit. Like that's it. Nobody actually engages with any of the subject matter. But that's true of almost everything with like online political shit.
So then they're gonna think that I'm helping a Nazi like trick people into Nazism. Is that how they're gonna interpret this?
Yes, unironically. My fan base thinks that. Yes. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Okay, so that's what I have to look forward to.
Basically, yeah.
Fuck. Well, that's not going to be very fun. Oh, well, I mean, I won't say anything that'll get me in trouble being emotional about it, but that's frustrating, dude, because I don't know. I won't say anything that'll get me in trouble.
Like, it's kind of like a broader critique of the left. There's this phrase called path to redemption. It really doesn't exist online. The only way you can ever like do right by like prior wrongs is to literally like come out crawling on your hands and knees saying like, I'm gonna like, suck off a guy named like Marx. I'm gonna nickname a dude and fuck him every day, and like I'm gonna go on like this tour where I give all my money away and like become like a boot. Like there is no like path to redemption for in online left-leaning spaces. So
Fuck.
And that's something that Lauren said over and over again that's probably true is like the fact that she's still a conservative. For a lot of these people online, conservatives and Nazis are literally the same fucking thing. So they don't see like a difference anyway. So yeah.
Here's another side question unrelated to this. I think would you characterize what Hunter Avalon has done as a rebranding thing?
I'm going to give you the same answer. In a way it is, but I don't like the term rebranding because there's like a disingenuous implication there when you say that, when you say rebranding. Yeah.
Because it's
I mean, like, yeah, in a way it kind of has, but I mean, like, I wouldn't call it rebranding, Tor.
Okay. Do you think I did harm by having Lauren on and talking with her? Like, were there points where I'm giving like too much credence to ideologies that could be harmful or something like that? Did I ever do that?
No, I don't believe in that shit anymore. Especially over the coronavirus shit and everything. My biggest thing right now is just misinformation. It's the number one thing that drives me crazy. And I think both sides of the left and right engage in this in equal levels. That the left and the right will engage in this massive amount of misinformation online. And that is the number one thing that I'm concerned with. I don't give a fuck at this point about like harmful ideologies or any of that shit, because I believe that misinformation is the most harmful thing in the world right now. I don't like, I'll take the L, give me the clips or whatever. I don't care about like 2 or 3 or 4, like the mass shootings or whatever, where, 100 people have died. I care about like the misinformation that has made it so that people won't get fucking vaccinated, to where people are having these insane political opinions about getting rid of all the police, where people don't know about anything that's going on overseas, where like these things are destroying all of society. And I think they are so much more important than like a mass shooting or something. I think that it's absolutely destroying this planet. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have much sympathy for the victims of shootings, as we already know.
Good one.
Any other hot takes you got going on, or anything else about the conversation you want to talk about?
No. I mean, I thought it went fine, but yeah, we'll see.
Awesome. What's your HoloLive take?
I think that's just sad people online that need to understand that anime is not real.
Huh. You don't think it's cool?
No, it's not good. We need to live in the real world.
What about Code Miko?
I think that like the ultra high effort stuff like that is a little bit different, but I don't view her as like, I don't think she presents herself as like a cutesy anime girl or whatever. I think that's
sometimes she does, I'll tell you. Sometimes she is a cute anime girl, bro.
She always comes off as more of like, this is like what Adult Swim would do if they did like content on Twitch. That's what it always felt like to me. But
interesting. Yeah, I think her stuff is funny. I like her streams, and I like that she has her like real life person in there a bunch too, and that she talks about like what's going on behind the scenes. It really gave me like more of an appreciation for it. Interesting. Oh, your fucking stupid styrofoam cup. What's up with that? You just don't want to rinse a fucking dish when you go to the sink? Why are you doing that?
The blender bottle things don't work for certain types of protein. So you have to basically stir it anyway. So like if I'm already getting like a spoon dirty and I'm already getting like a cup dirty and you have to like fucking rinse the fuck out of these things to clean them off or whatever, you never leave them sit. I just buy a bunch of like cups, disposable cups, and throw them away. Fuck it.
And you're not okay with being like a dirty fuck who just has his like protein spoon by the sink and you just rinse it off every time?
I mean, you can if you want to, but listen, it's easier to just use a disposable cup.
Okay, I'll think of arguments, dude. We'll have a whole blown out thing. I'll hit you with utilitarianism. How many extra trips to the garbage can are you doing?
Like technically, it's not good to use like single-use disposables. I mean, you probably shouldn't. It's not optimal. Sure. I don't actually know because I know California like water is scarce. I don't actually know where the balance comes out on that. Like styrofoam cups versus using tap water. I don't know. I do think it's really funny that like people got really, really, really ass mad about that. But like people will order food or get takeout like every day, or I order food like every day, and that's like way, way, way more waste than a fucking styrofoam cup. But yeah,
it was the laziness that got me. Just laziness at every level. It just blew me away. But
what do you mean? Like there's laziness in like ordering food every day. There's we live like super lazy lives.
Yeah, but this is a particular brand of laziness. It's rare. You don't see that shit out in the wild. This motherfucker bought 1,000 styrofoam cups.
Person that people focus on the 1,000. When you say 1,000, there's like an inner working I can see to your mind and how fucking stupid you are when you say that, right? Like it's not like I buy 1,000 and use them every day, right? It's like you use like 1 or 2 per day, right? Like people are really fixated on the 1,000 number. I think because they legitimately have nothing to say about it.
Because it would have stopped a sane person. Like when I'm like, fuck it, dude, I'm an idiot. Styrofoam cups. Let me do the math. How many styrofoam cups do I need? Like multiplying it out. I'm like, I'm really gonna buy 1,000 styrofoam cups right now because I don't want to wash some fucking dishes.
Say that, but
is there a simpler solution here?
People will say that, but people that make 1/10 the money I do will buy Starbucks every single day. Like at the end of the year, they're spending over $1,000. They're spending like fucking 10% of their income or more, like on Starbucks fucking coffee. And then I don't.
Oh, his internet cut out again. Sweden's resetting him. They were like, enough, no more styrofoam. Yet. Pull the plug. This motherfucker's committing genocide on the planet. Not good. He's probably still ranting too. He probably doesn't even know. I don't know what the hell people speak in the country he's from, so I don't know how to say no in Swedish. No, you couldn't do that. No. Oh no. Are you back yet, bud?
Am I? Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. People will say like, oh, well, when you're at that level, like I buy everything in bulk. I mean, like I literally buy everything in bulk. But like people will say like, isn't that really wasteful? But they'll get Starbucks like every single day. Like I don't know. It's really dumb to me.
I didn't think about Starbucks.
Well, I mean, you say I mean, I'm using Starbucks as one example. But people will like get fast food every day. People will get Starbucks every day. People drive around every day. Like there's like a million things you do that's like really harmful to the environment.
Sure, but those have experiences that are fun. You're not getting a fun experience out of your styrofoam cups.
Okay.
Well, I'm not going to debate you any further on it. Congrats, you won.
Thanks a lot, Adrian.
I appreciate the advice beforehand. Refocusing on what the purpose of it was really helped me to like give up on the idea of appeasing those Twitter people. And I think that helped a lot because I would have lost a lot of rapport from her to like have approached this the way I was going to approach it. Like, oh man, I was getting so fucking shifty with it. I was going to like, I don't even think I should talk about it, but like I was thinking about pacing and like going fast and slow, doing slow questions at first, and then doing this like lightning round where she gives me 3 sentences about some different ideas in a list. And I'm like, okay, ice cream, Obama, Richard Spencer, white replacement, like just like going to like, oh man, very, very good that I didn't do that, I think.
Yeah, that would have been pretty intense, but yeah.
All right.